Everybody, welcome to Control+M Presents. Seeing a lot of familiar faces here today, along with some new ones. We're awfully glad to have you here, share a little bit of what we know about Plex with you. We figure the more you know, the better off the whole Plex community will be, and that's good for everybody. As a reminder, we've got you all on mute so that we can record this session and publish it out on our YouTube channel, along with all of our other sessions. If you haven't checked that out yet, please take a few minutes to go out there, look at the content and subscribe. There's no obligation, and there's a really good body of work out there for both UX and Classic in English and Spanish. Today, our resident Plex OG, Kris Mattfeld, is going to go over some of the new features in Plex UX. Kris has been working with Plex longer than anybody else on our team, and he's had experience in a number of different companies. He wanted to put together a presentation on UX for two audiences. One, those of you who haven't transitioned yet and really just want to see what UX is all about. And two, for those of you who have transitioned to UX, or maybe always only used UX, but you might have maybe gotten too bogged down in your transition or implementation that some of these little cool features might have gotten by. So we know you drink through a fire hose when doing these projects, so Kris is here to show you some of those new fun features in Plex. Anyway, enough from me, Kris. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. So what I'd like to discuss with you today is the Plex UX fundamentals. Some of the areas that we're going to discuss, or I'm going to show you, is the launch page. This is where you first come into Plex UX. That's where you go. Then I'm going to walk you through the Plex Navigation Bar and explain how that's used. And then we're going to go through the Plex UX menu structure. Like Patty says, if you're coming from Classic to UX, this is a little bit different. Then I'm going to show you a really cool feature in Plex UX on creating folders for your favorites, and as well as creating favorites. And there's a couple of different ways that you can create your favorites I want to show you. Then we're going to walk through the Plex screen. So I want to show you how the filtering section works, and show you a little button that some people might not realize is there, as well as the action bar, explain that to you, and explain the grid section, as well as we're going to show you the browser navigation. This is something new to UX versus Classic, and then show you the cool feature on how to enable the reports within Plex UX. And then we'll finish up with the standard Windows shortcuts. And if you could hang on to the very end, I want to show you something that's really cool that I don't think too many people know that it's out there. It's actually, Patty showed it to me a couple weeks ago. So with that being said, let's get started with the Plex launch page. So when you first log into Plex, and this is where you'll land, I want to explain the screen to you a little bit. So in the upper left-hand corner where it says company, these are the list of companies, or some called PCNs, that you have access to. That is if you have multiple PCNs for your facility. To the right of that, this is your messages, and this can be used from the message manager. And then you can see that there's favorites, and we're going to go into this in more detail here in a little bit, but it shows you where your favorites are at. And you can see, for instance, I've got finite scheduling there, and it has a folder to the left that indicates there's additional favorites beneath that. Below this is your history. So what cool thing Plex UX does, it keeps track of the last 20 screens that you were in, and you can quickly go to those screens right from the history. And to the left of that is called open assignments. Excuse me. The purpose of the open assignments is, for instance, this screen showing that I have purchase orders, and it indicates that I have 3. So we've got a workflow turned on, and I've got 3 purchase orders that I need to go to and do the workflow approval process. And I'll show you how that works as well. And just so you know, that open assignments, there's a setting to turn that on or turn that off. So I want to show you the launch page, and we'll walk through this. So as you can see, this is on the far left, this is the companies. And if I click on the Control+M Solutions East, you notice that it is changing my PCN to the east, as well as my screen changes. The message went away, my favorites are gone and my history is different. When I click back to the Control+M solutions, you notice that that returns because it's based on PCN. And to the right of this is where you have your messages. So I can say, hey, remind myself to do reports, and I click on it, it shows me my message. Beside that is your favorites. Under your favorites, as I was showing before, is finite scheduling. If I hit this pull down, then I can see that I have different favorites up underneath the finite scheduling. Below this is history. So for instance, if I click suppliers, that's the screen I was in earlier today, it takes me right to the suppliers screen. I'm going to click on the Plex logo. It always takes me back to my launch page. And then to the left of this, you have your open assignments. And I'll click on this, and then I can see these are the POs that I need to go through the workflow process with. Here I'll click on the Plex logo again and go back to the main page. So that gives you an overview on how the launch page works. So on the launch page, you have what's at the top, you have what's called the navigation bar. The nice feature about the navigation bar is wherever you go within Plex, it stays on top of your screen. So on the upper left-hand corner of the navigation bar, you see the 3 horizontal lines. That's the menu button. And some also call that the hamburger button. To the right of that's your Plex logo. As you saw, I did in the previous screen of the demo. If you click on the Plex logo, it automatically takes you back to your launch page from wherever you're at. And beside that is your name. And from here, you can choose your language, edit your personal information, and also log out, which recommend to use that log out. It helps clean up the system when you go out. Then you can see, as I showed before, on the PCN that you are in. And I'm going to walk you through how to set that as your default. And beside that, you can see that you have the launch page. So as you navigate through Plex, you would see that what page that you were on. Then if you look at the far right, you see that there's a bell, and that bell is your message manager. You can click on that and set up your messages. Then you see that there's a clock. That clock is your history. And you'll be able to see the screens that you were in before, the last 20 screens. And then you see your favorites. That's the star. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail of that. You can see your favorites once you click on that. And then the right of that is the setup. That's the gears where you can refresh the page, duplicate a tab, copy a tab in test mode. And then to the right, that's a question mark. That's where you can access your Knowledge Center Plex community. And then to the far right of that, where it says go to, that's your menu search. So you can menu search the Plex nodes across there. And the cool thing with that is wherever you're at on the screen, if you press Control+M, it automatically takes you to the go to. And I'll show you that here as well. So I'll give you a little explanation on when you hit your PCNs and that drop down arrow on the right hand side, you can set this as your primary landing PCN. And it's highly recommended if you have multiple PCNs to set one as your primary, meaning to make sure you're always going into the same PCN every time before you start your work. To do that, you would take and hit the pull down. Then you click the house next to the company that you want to make that as your default. Then you'll get 2 message boxes pop up. The first one you want to answer yes. And the second one you want to answer okay. And I'll show you a demo of that here in a little bit. Then if you look on the far right, where I mentioned the bell, when you click on the bell, you can see where you can manage messages and the message banner. Beside that, the clock, this is showing you, these are the different places I've been, the history. And so again, you can click on this, whichever screen you like to go to. Beside that is a star. This is the favorites in the navigation bar. From here, you can add favorites, manage favorites, mass edit favorites, which I'll show you. And you can also go straight to reports that are turned on for that particular screen. And I'm going to show you how to set up reports, enable those as well. Then below that, you can see my different favorites that I have set up. And then to the right, you have the gears. And from here, you can refresh the page, duplicate a tab, or copy a tab in test mode. And classic, you would be calling that duplicate tab would be launch new session. So this, I'm going to show you how that works. It's really slick. And at the very bottom, this is something that's fairly new that Plex has turned on. You can access the IAM portal, and I'll show you that and let you see how you can change your password from there. Makes it real easy for the user to go directly into the IAM portal. And then to the right, you can see what there's the Knowledge Center, Plex Community. And this is a screenshot of what the Plex community looks like. And I'm going to walk you through from a particular screen, but this is replaces the wiki and classic. And if you're calling classic wiki, the users can also provide information, but in the Knowledge Center, all this data is controlled by Plex. Then again, on the far right-hand side to go to, this is something I use all the time. It makes it quick to navigate around to the different nodes. In Classic, you'd hit Control+M and you'd get a different menu search box that would pop up. But in UX, when you hit Control+M, it takes you directly to that go-to. And I'll show you how that works as well. So let's walk through the navigation bar so you can get a feel for it. So again, in the upper left-hand corner, it's the menu button, or you might hear somebody call it the hamburger. Once you click on this, this shows you the different menu nodes within Plex. To the right, as I demonstrated before, when you click on the Plex logo, it automatically turns you back to your launch page. From here, beside that, you can see my name. I can choose language, edit personal information. And again, using this logout helps clear out your cache and so forth in the system. To the right, if you hit the pull down, this is where you have your Control+M solutions and East. I can grab either one. Here shows me I'm currently in the launch page. If, for example, I go to suppliers, now I'm in the supplier screen. I want to go ahead and click on the Plex and go back. Then I'll go over to the right. This is where you click on the bell and you can see the message manager. And you can just navigate into the message manager and hit search, and you can see the particular messages that I've got set up for myself. Beside that, this is the clock. Now, the advantage of the navigation bar is it's with, like I said, it's with you all the time. So if I go in here and I want to go to parts, it takes me right to the parts. As you notice, the navigation bar is gone. So this is always with me. It just makes it so much faster to get around. And the favorites, when you click on the favorites, you can add the favorites, manage favorites, mass edit. And I'll show you on the reports. And then these are my favorites I have set up. When I go to the gears, I can refresh a page by clicking on that. And it refreshed the page. I can do duplicate tab. If you watch across the top, it comes up to duplicate tabs. So I have two tabs running at the same time. And it would be in the same screen I was in. For example, let me show you if I take this screen into suppliers, and I say duplicate tab, it takes me to another supplier screen. So now you can see I have 3 sessions running at the same time. I don't know of a limit. I've had several, but the thing is, I would take and try to limit how many you have, because of the more you have, the harder it is to understand where you're at. The other cool thing that you have in UX is now I can copy my tab in production mode. So you notice that the orange, this is a classic for the collar for test, but now I'm in live, so you can see I'm in blue. So it tells me I'm in the live system. It's a good visual for you. If I like to close these tabs, I can just click and close them. Again, I didn't log out. Now, when I go to log out, I would use my username and press the log out. Below this is the IAM portal. When I click on this, you notice it's going to launch a new session. It brings me up to my username, and then clear at the bottom, you can enter your current password, enter a new password, and confirm a password. Again, it opened a new tab. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and close that. So to the right of that is, this is the help, and you can go to Knowledge Center, Plex Community. So let's go to, for instance, suppliers. And if I go suppliers, and then I go into the Knowledge Center, you notice it takes me right to the suppliers. So it makes it really quick to go and do investigation. If you need to understand how something works, you can hit the, for instance, I need to know how to add a supplier. You can draw in and start getting that information. Really quick, really easy to use. Again, there is also the search. You can do a search within the Knowledge Center as well. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and close that. And then the go-to. So again, I'm in the supplier screen. If I press and hold Control and tap M, it takes me right to the go-to. So for instance, if I want to go look at parts, I type in parts, and you notice that in the menu structure, it shows everywhere that parts is listed, plus it also shows me the path how to get there. The other cool feature is, you notice in the bottom, this tells me I have reports that are turned on, where parts is in the name of the report. If I did go ahead and hit enter, then you notice it opens that up into a wider screen. And if you like, you can see the breadcrumbs here. You could jump into any one of these screens from this point. So I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to the launch page. And let's go ahead and talk. Sorry, went the wrong way. Apologize. There we go. Let's get into the Plex menu. We're going to talk about the structure. So as I showed on the previous screen, the demo, when you click on the hamburger, you see these different nodes appear. You also notice on the right-hand side where it says main menu and role-based. That role-based can be set up your menu structure based off of security roles and permissions. Then if you look in the lower section, you can see where you have different menu nodes. So you can go into, for example, the accounting or suppliers and purchasing. And you notice to the right of those, there's an arrow. What that arrow indicates is there's additional nodes below that. When you finally drill down into the last node that you want to get into, there wouldn't be an arrow. So for example, in this screen, I'm showing that I went in after the process routings. So I went after the main menu, products and programs, product data management, then process routing. You notice process routing doesn't have an arrow. So if I click on that, it takes me right into my process routing screen. So as I'm in this, if I can see my breadcrumbs, I could drop back to any of the previous nodes. For example, I could drop right back into the products and programs if I'd like. So now we're going to talk through how to create a favorite, and then I'm going to show you how that's done. So to create a favorite, the first thing you need to do is get the screen that you want to create the favorite for. in this particular case, I did a menu search and I went into the process routing. From there, I click on the star, so in the navigation bar, and then I click add to favorites. Once I click on add to favorites, then you're going to have another screen pop up. In this screen, the first field that you see, there's the name. Gives you the opportunity, you can change that name if you like. Then there are 3 checkboxes, and the purpose of those are, as you're taking and setting up that screen that you were just in for the process routings, I could have set up my filters, how I wanted them to come in, set my column widths, and also set my sort order. So if you want to keep that as you come into the screen, that's how you select those checkboxes. Below that is how you set up a group. So you can create a new group, where I could have that favorite automatically added to a group that I've got set up. In this case, as you can see, I've got my group as finite scheduling. I could add it to that, or in this particular case, we're going to create it in a new group. Then the final checkbox at the bottom is if you like to make that your home page, you could hit that checkbox, and it would make that page screen as your home page. Once you get those selected, you'd hit OK. Then it drops you into another screen. Since I said I wanted to select that into a new group, it's given me the opportunity to change that new group name. In this case, I was going to change it into what's called data management. And then once you just change the name, at the bottom, you got the options. You can cancel, just unsave what you just did, back you out. If you hit apply, and this works across Plex, if you hit apply, it saves the data and keeps the screen open. If you hit OK, it saves the data and closes that screen. Just a little word of advice, if you put your data in and then you hit that X in the top right-hand corner, it didn't save your data, so you'd have to do that again. So let's go ahead and create a favorite here. So we'll do the same as we did in the documents. So we're going to go to process routings. From here, I'm on the process routing screen. I'm going to hit the star. I'm going to go to add to favorites. From here, I'm going to leave the name alone. I didn't set any filters or column widths or sort order, so I'll leave that blank. In the group, I'm going to create a new group, and I'm not going to make this my home page. From here, I'm going to hit OK, and it brings me into that new screen. So you can see process routings underneath that folder, and I'm going to call this data management. Okay. And for one, I just want to point out, and I'm going to show you in a second, you do have the ability to change the text. I'm going to leave that off so I can show you how to fix that here in a few minutes. So from here, I can hit apply. If I hit apply, it'll save the data and close it and leave the screen open. If I hit OK, it saves the data and it says OK. So if I hit my Plex to take me back, you can see I have my data management folder set up in process routings. So if I click on process routings, it takes me right to the process routing screen. Let's go back to the launch page. So the next thing I want to walk you through is how to manage your favorites. And that's why I made a mistake on the previous screen, so I can show you how I want to fix that. So to manage your favorites, you're going to, again, click on the star in the navigation bar. Then you're going to select Manage Favorites. From there, you have many options that you can do. One is you can change the sort order, which I'll show you how to do. Organize your favorites, make sure it makes logical sense to you. You can create hotkeys. And that's on this right-hand side. I'm going to show you. You have several options how to make hotkeys. I'll show you how to change the name. I'm going to show you in the action bar, there's a mass edit. You can create new groups. You could set as homepage if you like. And you can also remove a favorite or a group. And when you remove a group, it's going to remove all the favorites that's with underneath that. So let's go into that, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So we're going to first go into the star, and we're going to click Manage Favorites. So one of the first things I want to show is how you can change the order. So if I left click on Finite Schedule, left click and hold it, you can see I can drag and drop that. Say Data Management, I want to put all my folders together. I could also change just the favorite itself. Say I want Receive General, I could have that pull up and drop here. So it's really quick and simple how to organize your favorites and folders. Then as you notice, I did the data management. I did that D in lowercase. I want that in uppercase. So I just click on it, hit the pencil, then I can come over and edit this. Once I edit, I can just field exit off of that and it changed the text. Then to the right, you can see that there's several dashes here. This is where you create your hotkeys. So for instance, General Receive, if I hit this, then you see on the left, I have an option to go with the dash, Shift, Control, or Alt. If I leave the dash, then I can see these are the function keys that are available. If I select the Shift, then I have even more function keys and numerical. Then if you hit the Control, you can see you have function keys in the 0. And the big one is if you hit the Alt, you have function keys, numerical, and alpha. So I'm not sure what the total is. I didn't do the math on it, but you have a lot of options to make for your hotkeys. So in this case, say for General Receive, I'm going to use the dash and use F1. And so once I save this, which we'll do here in a second, it will keep that, and I'm going to show you how that F1 key works. Okay. And in your action bar, again, you can see you can do a mass edit. You can do create new group, set as home page, or remove from there. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to refresh my screen. I can use it from the browser refresh. And now you notice how my favorites have moved based off what I have set up. So if I hit my F1 key, you notice it takes me to my Receive General screen. So it's a quick way to jump into a screen that you use repetitive. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to walk you through the mass edit of your favorites. So if you want to do mass edit, again, you'd go into the action bar, click on the star. And from here, when we're going into the mass edit, you're going to see all the favorites that you have. From there, I can make them active or inactive by selecting the checkbox. To the right of that, I could assign them to a group. If I wanted to move more of a favorite into a group. I can do hotkeys, set all my hotkeys up that I like. And I can also add a name or change the name. And once you get that done, just remember, make sure you hit apply or OK to save any of your changes. The other thing you can do as a mass edit screen is you can realize that you can create a lot of favorites at one time if you like. And how you do that is you go in the mass edit favorites, and in the filtering section, you want to filter after the certain data you're looking for. In this case, I'm showing accounts receivable. And here's the kicker. You got to make sure that the active only is unchecked. If it's checked, it's only going to show you the favorites you have that are active, and you're looking for inactive. You would hit search, and then you would see the list of accounts receivable screens that you can make a favorite. From there, you would select the active. You could assign it to a group. You can make it a hotkey. And then once you do select that, it will default its name in. And then once you've made all your changes, you can hit apply, just save it and keep the screen open, or you hit OK, it saves and closes the screen. So let's walk through how to do that. So again, I'm going to go into the star and I'm going to mass edit my favorites. Okay, and I'm going to show all filters. I'm going to remove the checkbox. And I'm going to type in accounts receivable. And I hit the magnifying glass and it auto-filled in. Then I'm going to hit the search. Once I hit the search, these are all the screens that I can make a favorite if I like. So for instance, if I want to go into accounts receivable invoices, I click on the active and you notice it filled in the name. But I want to change that name. That to me, that's too long. I just want to call it AR invoices. Once I've done that, I hit apply. I'm going to use apply this time. And then it saved the data and you notice it went away, right? Once I hit the active only, then it shows me here is my favorite that I've just created. Okay, I'm just going to hit OK. And then I'm going to refresh my screen. And you see AR invoices are there. So that's a favorite that I've added to that. Really quick and easy. And again, that's a quick way if you have a certain screen that you want to set up several favorites on at one time. That makes that really quick. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Plex screens. So we're going to navigate to suppliers, but I want to explain that there's the filtering section at the top. This is how you filter your data. Then you have what's called the action bar. That's in light blue across the middle, and that's a constant throughout UX. Then you have a grid display. A grid display is based on what you entered in your search criteria and hit the search, or in the filtering section, hit the search, it brings back your data for you. So in the filtering section, you can still use the wildcards, which is the percent sign. In this case, I've got in the supplier code, I've got %CM, so bring me everything back for that supplier code that has a CM in it. And you also see in the fields that there are daggers beside several of the fields. In this particular screen, there's a dagger beside every field. What this is indicating is at least one of these fields must have a criteria entered into it. If you went into Plex and you tried to run this particular screen wide open, it's going to give you an error message. It's going to say, hey, you've got to give me at least a criteria. And Plex will show you which fields need the criteria, and I can show you that as well. Then if you look to the right, you see where it says hide filters. What you can do is you can select that and it collapses that screen. If I collapse it, then I get the option to show filters. And we'll walk through that as well. Then there's to the right of that, it says save as default. If you use a particular screen, you always do it in a certain way. You can take and set your filters up, set save as default. And the next time you come into that screen, the filtering section will already be set for you. And then to the right of that, this is the push pin. This is something that I'm not sure everybody's aware of, but you're going to see how this works. What this does, push pin does, is it collapses that filtering section or expands the filtering section for you. So within the filtering section, you see the magnifying glasses. And this is for a picker. And you saw me use it when I was looking for the particular accounts receivable. So in this case, you notice on the right, there is the list of supplier types, and this is a multi-picker. I could select the top, checkbox and it'd select all the supplier types, or I could select certain supplier types and then hit OK. And then it helps tighten my search. Then once you have that, you would see what's called the action bar. Now the action bar is tasks that will be performed for that particular screen. And that action bar can change, depends upon what screen it is. When I say change, there's different functions that can be performed. And it is security driven as well. In the action bar, one cool thing that you'll see in UX is you have the ability to export as. And the most common files that I've seen users use is export as for CSV files or Excel files can be used. And then in the grid section, based off how you've filtered on your data, these are the results that came back. So in this case, I can see everything that has the letter CM in it. And to be able to get into that record itself, there's multiple ways to do that. For one, you notice that Acme safety, it has a line underneath of it, plus it's a little bit bold. That means it's a hyperlink. You can drill directly into that. It takes you right into the screen. Another way is you can select the row and change the shade to light blue and then hit the edit. Or you could hit the checkbox and then hit the edit. It takes you right into that screen. So let's show you how that's done. Okay, so we're going to go to suppliers. A couple of ways I can go. I do a menu search. Also, I can go into my history. If you notice, I've been in suppliers. I click right in suppliers, and here we go. I'm in the suppliers screen. So if I want to, I'm going to do the wildcard CM. And once I hit that and I hit enter, or you could hit search, you notice that the filtering section collapsed. If I want to hit show all filters, now I have more filters available. So for instance, I want to drive this data down even tighter. I can go into the type. On the type, this is where I have multiple pickers that I could use. I'm going to, let's use purchase parts and carrier. I want to select OK. Then you notice on the part type where it shows the purchase parts and carrier. From there, I'm going to hit search. Oh, that collapsed again. If I wanted to go after a different filter, I would have to pull up the show filters. Well, to the far right, where you see the push pin, when I click the push pin, it changed its orientation, and then I can hit search. You notice it didn't collapse? And how I use this myself is depends on the data I'm going after. If I need to keep drilling down, if I've got a lot of data, I need to keep drilling down. Sometimes it's quicker instead of show all filters and so forth. I'll use the push pin, leave my filters up until I get down to the data that I need. And then I can flip the push pin back, hit the search, and you notice now I have more real estate. If I had more records, it could be easier to see. So again, here's your action bar. You can do the add. You notice that is bold, and the edit is not as bold. It's shaded a lighter shade. But once I say click on the checkbox, now the edit is bold. Or if I was just to select on this row, it changes the shade and the checkbox is selected, and now I can't edit. So if I hit edit, it takes me into the record. And you notice the action bar to it now. Again, it depends on what screen you're on. Here I can use the browser back button, and you notice how it takes me back to the screen. Another option to get into this supplier is I can click on the hyperlink, and again, it takes me right back into the supplier screen, and I can make any changes. Once I make my changes, again, I hit apply or OK. And I'm going to use the navigation button on the back, and you notice I can go back. Let me point something out too. We're going to discuss here in a few minutes, but you can see you can also go forward, and it takes me right back in that screen I was in because you're using the browser navigation. Okay. So that's how you can navigate the screens from the filtering section to the action bar to the grid section. So kind of what I was talking about just a second ago, and I've kind of mentioned this as we've gone through, as if you look at your browser, you can see again at the top, you have multiple sessions running. Now, if you do have multiple screens, which I use multiple, I can drag one screen over or drag one session to another screen. So I can see two sessions side by side. Makes it really quick to validate data as well as entering data in. The other thing is I just showed you on the back and forward arrows on your browser, how that works. And you can see the refresh, which you've seen me use as we walk through some of these demos. It refreshes that screen as well. Now I want to talk to you briefly about the reports and analytics, how you set those up. So what first thing you'd have to do is you get to the reports screen. And from there, you're going to select available reports. And this shows you the whole list of reports. Once you get into a list of reports that are available, in this case, I'm showing the module scheduling. I would take and enter scheduling and do a search. And then it shows me all available reports. Now, the ones that are already checked are turned on. If you would like to turn on another report, you simply just select a checkbox for that report and hit apply. And it shows up as available. Now, there is security that would need to be set up as well for your reports. So one thing I love about UX, you can limit who can see what. And we're not going to go in depth on that today. That could be for a later session that we could do on security. So let's walk through how to set up reports. So I'm just going to navigate back to my launch page. And I'm going to do Control+M. It takes me to my go-to. And I'm going to type in report, and it shows me my reports. So the first thing you notice that it collapsed. So I'm going to show all filters, and I'm going to say available reports. Now it's going to go out and look. And these are all available reports. There's, I don't know the grand total, but there's obviously more than 1,000 because that's all that will render. So I'm going to go after scheduling. And if I hit the magnifying glass, it gives me the type of scheduling I want to see. Let's go look for master scheduling, for instance. And I'm just going to hit search, and lo and behold, there's nothing there. I apologize for that. So let's do Kanban scheduling. See if we've got a report for there. There's a couple reports that we could add. So from here, you'd select the checkbox for the report that I want to turn on. It's called Approved Kanban Work Center. I come over and hit apply. And now that report, as you see, the customer report list is updated. So show you something real quick. I can highlight this and use Control+C. Go to the go-to and hit enter. And now it says when I did a menu search on that report, you can see that it comes up under the report search results. And if I click on that, it takes me directly to that report. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the launch page. And the other thing I wanted to point out is the shortcuts. As you notice, I did the Control+C to copy. That works, as well as all your other Windows shortcuts work, like find, menu search, which I've showed several times, the print, the paste, the cut, and of course, Control+Z to undo something. The other thing that you can use is the windows to lock and to minimize. But here's the one I wanted to point out. Patty showed this to me a couple weeks ago. If you use the window key and period, that gives you your emojis. And this is kind of cool. So if I come back here, and if I, for instance, I go suppliers, and if I do, I'm in this field and I do the Windows key and the period, you notice how the emojis pop up? So if I hit, and I put the smiley face in, and if I do a search, I created a supplier with the smiley face, BSE. So that's something I think really cool. I haven't seen that before, and I appreciate Patty showing that to me. So that's what I've got to show you today. I hope you picked up a few little pointers on how to navigate and use Plex UX. So does anybody got any questions for me?
Chris, I've been watching the chat and I haven't seen anything come up. I think everyone's probably just absorbing.
Okay.
Just want to remind everybody that you are on mute, so we'll give you a second to see if anyone's got a question. Make sure you unmute yourself and dive in. Here's a great question. Our favorites cross PCN. Oh my gosh, I can promise you that if they were, we would all love it. And if you want to put that in the community, please email me. Everyone on my team will upvote it in a hurry. But
Yeah.
no, they're one by one, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah, they're one by one. So you'd have to set them up in each individual. It kind of showed when I flipped between my two PCNs. I guess I should have pointed out a little bit better, but you'll see that the favorites are different. Your history is different as well.
Somebody's asking if we can have a hotkey for refresh page. Is that still F5? Does F5 still refresh the page, Chris?
Yeah, F5, and I believe in UX, F5 now works, where in classic F5 refresh does not work.
Okay. We'll keep watching the chat to see if any other questions come through.
Hi there. Can you demonstrate deleting a favorites group? Maybe this is fixed now, but it's something we were struggling to do a couple of weeks ago.
Deleting a favorites group. Good question. Ryan.
Yeah, good question. So I'm going to go into my favorites, and I'm going to go into manage favorites. So I've got my group. This is the one I made. If I click on this and say remove, it's going to warn you. You're going to remove the group and all the favorites in that group. And I say yes, and bam, she's gone.
Chris, if you wanted to remove the group but keep the favorites, could you remove the favorite from the group and then delete the group once it's empty? Is that possible?
That's possible. Or for example, I can pull up just this group itself and say I want to just remove job manager too. You can do that as well.
I think I recall now the issue was there's a user permissions we needed to set up for a user to be able to delete their the favorites they made.
Okay. And the whole key to that is if I hit cancel, it doesn't save what I did. So make sure you hit apply or okay. That's a good question, though. Thank you.
Got another vote for XPCN favorites. Man, I'm with you. I would vote that up. So if anybody wants to put that in the community, let me know. Man, we'll be on that right away. Well, Chris, the questions are slowing down. Great job today. I'm sure that everybody here got at least a little something out of this presentation. Even if you already saw some of these things before, I think just being able to focus on UX functionalities means that they might stick in your memory a little bit. Your assignment now is going to try to build these great little tricks into your everyday life. I'm personally going to spend some time organizing my favorites. Someone who supports Plex with lots of customers, those actual extra options are great. Chris, can you hit the next slide?
Yep.
So we're going to slip in an extra session next week. We're not going to wait 2 weeks for our next session because I'm going to be out and I want to do the next one on preparing your PCN for next year. I'm going to be going over how and why to set up the various calendars that drive the Plex engines for planning and for shipping. We're going to talk a little bit of accounting, not a whole heck of a lot. And we're going to talk about some general annual maintenance that you should be doing on your PCN. If you plan to use Plex next year and you're putting in orders now for next year, I'm going to highly recommend that you come to this session. We want to thank you all for joining us today. We understand that your time is valuable and we sure appreciate you spending some of it with us. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Let's watch those videos, learn a few tricks, and leave us some feedback. We love those thumbs up. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week.
Thank you.